Throughout history, rice has been more than just a food source. It is a thread intertwined with the destiny of entire communities. Along with this grain lies African rice. The rice hints at ancient secrets from Western Africa. This grain embarked on a dark, perilous journey across the Atlantic with enslaved Africans, carrying secrets of survival and adaptation. This grain is far from ordinary. Black rice stands as a sacred link to our ancestors, a powerful symbol of heritage, resilience within the African diaspora. So, tonight, we invite you to delve into the history of black rice. And if you like stories like this, you can find more stories like this at onemichistory.com. But without further ado, let's get started. In the heart of Western Africa, along the banks of the Niger River, this region became the birthplace of African rice around 300 AD. Unlike its more famous Asian cousins, this species shares a unique lineage, deeply intertwined with the land and its people. African rice is akin to wild African rice in the same way that Asian rice is akin to Asian wild rice. Yet, these two strains emerge completely independent of each other. African wild rice once thrived wildly across numerous habitats. However, Sahara saw a transformation, shifting from a wetter to a much drier climate. Ancient massive lakes in what is today Western Sahara would dry up, and as such, the wild rice became more dependent on humans for its survival. This would ultimately lead to its domestication. African farmers were true architects of this agricultural landscape. In rain-fed uplands, they synchronized planting with the seasons, employing simple tools such as hoes or even the heels of their feet to lay the groundwork for a bountiful harvest. Meanwhile, in swampy lowlands, these farmers designated earthen embankments that transformed difficult terrain into productive fields. Along these selenial-prone coastal estuaries, a complex network of embankments and dikes and tidal canals were constructed, turning these hostile environments into fertile rice paddies. Western Africans knew how to grow in a variety of different environments. So, throughout this agricultural evolution, it was black women who stood at the forefronts. They were the guardians of seeds and the bearers of the profound knowledge. They made strategic selections that kept rice cultivation robust, and their knowledge was nuanced and encompassed flood tolerance, pest resistance, and passing on the wisdom down to subsequent generations. So, it's not surprising that the rise of the Ghanan, the Mali, or the Songhai empires was far from accidental. Their prominence was largely fueled by their strategic mastery over rice, a grain that was synonymous with wealth and subsistence. This vital crop bolstered their ability to withstand the relentless Saharan droughts, along with nourishing the banks of the Niger, the Senegal, and the Bani rivers. Expansive wetlands would blossom with the rice fields, sustaining the local population and supplying surplus grain, fish, and meat to busy trans-Saharan trade caravans. So, by the 15th and 16th century, Portugal explorers became the first to document the prolific cultivation along southern rivers in Western Africa, in an area that would later become known as the Rice Coast. This expertise in rice cultivation would then unintentionally make its way across the Atlantic during the tragic period of the transatlantic slave trade. Enslaved Africans would be brought to the Americas, carrying with them an invaluable agricultural knowledge, and often they would manage to transport rice seeds cleverly braided into their hair. Beginning in the 1550s with their arrival in Brazil, and later in the late 1700s reaching the United States, these African rice cultivators would leave an indelible mark on agricultural practices within the New World. The traditional story of the introduction of rice to the Carolina colonies would be credited to an English ship captain who allegedly gifted rice from Madagascar in 1685. However, this story has faced fierce criticism. Many historians suggest that it was actually Africans who were already deeply versed in rice cultivation who were the first to plant rice in the Carolinas. It's believed that both Asian and African rice species were likely grown there, potentially originating from a variety of different sources, including aboard slave ships. Enslaved Africans would play a crucial role in transforming the agricultural landscape in the Americas by developing crops that aligned with their preferences. One notable example of this is with African rice, which demonstrated an exceptional ability to thrive in the brackish waters in the New World's coastal deltas. This rice would gain prominence in areas like South Carolina, where it became known as Carolina Gold. Interestingly enough, the intermingling of different rice species in the Americas suggests that Carolina Gold may have been of Asian origins, as both African and Asian rice varieties were present in the area at the time. However, Southern planters assumed that Carolina Gold was of African origins because it was being planted by enslaved Africans. Nevertheless, by the 1700s, the economic landscape in the Carolinas was so deeply intertwined with the expertise of Africans from the Rice Coast that Carolina planters recognized the unmatched skill of these individuals in rice cultivation, prioritizing their importance over all others. Their preference was evident in the bustling ports of Charleston and Savannah, which saw a steady influx of enslaved Africans from this region. The economic significance of rice quickly eclipsed that of even indigo or cotton as the primary crop in the region. The Civil War marked the decline of Carolina's once bustling rice economy. However, for African Americans, rice would continue to hold its cultural significance, specifically with Black communities in the Lowcountry regions of South Carolina and Georgia. Drawing on their ancestral heritage, these communities infused new life into rice farming by cultivating the esteemed Carolina Gold. So, throughout the 20th century, rice remained a vital element for both cultural and economic spheres, serving as a staple in intimate family gatherings or large community celebrations. Dishes like Hoppin' John is a quintessential example of this tradition. Its roots can be traced all the way back to Africa and the Caribbean sugar plantations. This dish combines rice with black-eyed peas or tiny red peas and often cooked with bacon. It initially gained popularity among enslaved communities, and according to the folklore, eating Hoppin' John on New Year's Day brings prosperity, with the saying that states that eat poor on New Year's Day, eat rich the rest of the year. However, the rich cultural narrative of African Americans and rice is complicated by commercial representation of figures like Uncle Ben. Introduced in 1946, the brand featured an image of a fictitious Black man named Uncle Ben, echoing the stereotypes of uncle and mammy figures commonly used in advertising during the era. This depiction, often lacking in individuality, serving primarily to create a comforting narrative for a predominantly white consumer base, while being disconnected from a genuine historical narrative of African American expertise and contributions to rice agriculture. Uncle Ben was supposedly named after a Black rice farmer celebrated for his high-quality crop, although the real individual behind the name has never been conclusively identified. Over decades, the brand became an American household staple. However, the image of Uncle Ben gradually evolved into a mere product icon, detached from its deeper historical context. This plays a bit into the history of rice in America because it is inextricably linked to the stories of Black cultivators whose contributions were often overlooked. While historically marginalized as just laborers, these Black individuals were actually pioneers of significant agricultural transformation, laying a foundation that reaches far into cultural and culinary territories. And their legacy remains an integral part of America's culinary landscape, highlighting the ever-enduring legacy of Black Americans on this country. Thank you. I'm your host, Country Boy, and this is the story of Black rice. If you like stories like this, you can find more stories like this at OneMicHistory.com. I'd like to thank all my financial contributors. Without you, none of this could be possible. And peace.